Hello. Today I'm going to read some stories from Dirty Bertie, and this is a little boy who just gets filthy and does sometimes things that he probably shouldn't. So we'll start with the first chapter. And the first chapter is called Worms. So this is a fiction book. That means it's not real, it's made up, it's in somebody's head, so it's not a fact, it's fiction. And there's 3 chapters in this book, and you can see them in the index in the contents page. We've got one chapter which is worms, then we've got manners, and then we've got rubbish. This is chapter 1, worms. I'll show you the pictures there. It was Monday morning, and Bertie was eating his breakfast. "Bertie, don't do that," said his mum, looking up. "Do what?" said Bertie. "Let Whiffer lick your spoon. I saw you." "He's hungry," said Bertie. Now, Whiffer is the dog, and you can see just there he's licking his breakfast spoon. It's not very hygienic, you can get germs. "I don't care," sighed Mum. "It's dirty, Bertie." Bertie inspected his spoon and gave it a lick. It looked clean enough to him. Just then he heard the post thudding through the letterbox. He jumped down from the table, skidded into the hall, because Bertie hardly ever got a letter, but it didn't stop him checking the post. He sorted through the bundle. Dad, Mum, Mum, Dad, boring, boring, wait. A letter with his name on it that was written in very large, wonky letters, and you can see there it says, "To Bertie." Bertie burst into the kitchen. "I've got a letter." He tore the envelope open, and the decorations on the card could only mean one thing. It was a party. Bertie loved birthday parties. He loved the games, the cake, and the party bags. Last year, he'd had a dog party, and everyone had come as a dog. Bertie had been a bloodhound with Dracula fangs. He had wanted dog biscuits for tea, but his mum had put her foot down. So she'd said, "No, you're not having dog biscuits for tea at your party." Mum picked up this invitation. "Oh, lovely, Bertie. Angela's invited you to her party." "Angela?" said Bertie. The smile went from his face. "Not Angela." "Yes, Angela next door." "Bertie's little girlfriend," teased his sister Susie. Bertie grabbed the invitation and read the message inside. It says here, "Please come to my pink birthday party on Friday. Wear something pink. Love and kisses from Angela." I don't know, do you like pink? I like pink. I don't think Bertie likes pink. Bertie's mouth gaped open. His whole body dropped with disappointment. Angela Nicely lived next door and was almost 6. She had straight blonde hair, rosy cheeks, and large blue eyes, and worst of all, she was in love with Bertie. She followed him around like a shadow. He didn't want to go to Angela's birthday party, and he definitely didn't want to go to any party where you had to dress in pink. Bertie's favourite colour was brown. Mud was brown, fingernails were brown, poo was brown, ribbons, bows and ballet shoes, they were pink. "I don't have to go, do I?" said Bertie. "Nose," said Mum. Bertie removed a finger that had strayed up his nose. He's picking his nose. "Angela's invited you," said Mum. "How would you feel if you invited Angela and she didn't come to your party?" "I'd feel glad," said Bertie truthfully. "It's a party, Bertie. You love parties," said Mum. Angela," teased his sister Susie. Bertie ignored her. "It'll be terrible. They'll all want to play princesses. Couldn't you say I've gone to the dentist?" Mum gave him a look. "That would be a lie, wouldn't it, Bertie?" "Mum, they'll all be girls," moaned Bertie. "I'll be the only boy." "I'm sure it will be fun. Now, I'm late for work." And she kissed him and hurried out. Bertie slumped into a chair. A pink party with adoring Angela and her friends. Could anything be worse? So look there, he's sitting in his chair and he looks very miserable. The next day, Bertie overheard Mrs. Nicely talking to his mum about the party. There they are having a chat. It was just as he feared. He was the only boy invited, along with 6 of Angela's friends. Angela is so excited about Bertie coming, said Mrs. Knightley. I think it's sweet she's invited her boyfriend. Bertie was nearly sick. Boyfriend? Yuck! He wasn't Angela's boyfriend. If his friends ever heard about the party, they would make fun of him for weeks. He wasn't going to go, and that was final. If his mum couldn't think of an excuse, then he'd have to invent one himself. And when it came to cunning plans, Bertie was a master. In his room, he searched under the bed for the shoebox where he kept his top secret possessions. He pulled out a notebook and he began to write a list. So you can see his top secret possessions box here. It's got a stick in it. It's got things that look quite like rubbish, really, but they're very important to Bertie. Brilliant excuses for not going to a party. This is Bertie's list. These are reasons not to go to Angela's party. A crocodile bit my head off and I'm not talking to anyone. Do you think that sounds true? I don't think that happened. Number 2, I've got a rare disease. It's called partyitis, which brings me out in terrible spots. I also think that might be a big lie. 3, I had baked beans for breakfast, lunch and supper, and I think you know what that means. I think Bertie might have a bit of a windy bum. 4, I have lost my memory. What party? So those are his excuses. I don't think they're very good ones. Bertie read back through it. Brilliant, he thought. Excuse number 4 would do the trick. Let's remind ourselves what excuse number 4 was. We're going to look at the list again. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4. I have lost my memory. What party? So Bertie's going to pretend he's forgotten all about the party. Now all he had to do was talk to Angela and convince her, and then he would be off the hook. No stinky pinky party for him. Bertie's chance came on Wednesday lunchtime. He was eating lunch with his friends Darren and Eugene, and they were flicking peas at the next table to see if they could land one down the back of Noel-Nick's jumper. Hello, Bertie, said Angela, appearing from nowhere. Bertie looked at her blankly. Who are you? He said. Angela giggled. You are funny, Bertie. Didn't you get the invitation? You are coming to my party, aren't you? Bertie frowned. What party? What party? Silly. You know, my pink party, said Angela. Pink party? Laughed Darren. Bertie's going to a girls' party. Bertie looked at him. Sorry, I don't remember any party, Angela. I've lost my memory, you see. Gosh, said Angela. How? That's just it. I can't remember. I must have got a bang on the head. Poor Bertie, said Angela. Eugene and Darren looked at each other. Poor Bertie, they mimicked. That means pretended and teased. Angela put her hand on Bertie's, and Bertie snatched it away quickly. Never mind, she said. The party's at my house on Friday, and we're having a bouncy castle. Have a nice time, said Bertie, loading more peas onto his spoon, and Angela stamped her foot. You've got to come, Bertie. Laura and Maisie coming, and I've told them you're my boyfriend. So this is Angela here. She's got a lovely dress on. It's black and white in this picture, but I think maybe it's pink and white in real life. And she's got a lovely bow in her hair, which also might be pink. And here's Bertie, and there are Bertie's friends, and they don't look very impressed by a pink party either. Eugene gurgled and slipped off his chair. Bertie stared hard at Angela as if she looked faintly familiar. Sorry, what did you say your name was again? He's pretending. Angela gave a howl of rage and stormed off. She is very cross. Bertie heaved a sigh. Phew, it had been a close call, but he thought he'd got away with it. Later that evening, Mrs. Knightley called to see his mum. Sensing trouble, Bertie hid in his room. But as soon as the front door closed, there was a shout from downstairs. Bertie, down here, now. Bertie slunk downstairs. So he walked a little bit slowly and creepily because he knows he's been a bit naughty. Right, said Mum. What is this about, losing your memory? Bertie stared at his feet. Yes, it just seems to keep going. Really? So you don't remember Angela's invitation, said his mum. Bertie knit his eyebrows. That means like puzzled. You put your eyebrows together. It's knitting your eyebrows together. What invitation? He asked. Mum folded her arms. That's a pity, because there's a film you wanted to see at the weekend, and I expect that you've forgotten that too. Bertie hadn't. Pirates of Blood Island, he blurted out. He had been begging to see the film for weeks. Oh, so your memory is working now, said Mum. Well, I remember some things, said Bertie, but other things I forget. Said Mum. Well, don't worry, because I've marked the party on the calendar to remind you. So this is what some people have. I have one in my house. Some people have on the walls in their house, and you might have it on your phone. And it's a list of the whole year. It's called a calendar, and you put on there the dates when you're going to do things. So his mum's put a big circle around. I think it's number 8, and that means that is the day of Angela's party. She pointed to Friday the 8th. It was ringed in red. And Bertie, yes, I will not forget, said Mum. Bertie slunk out of the kitchen. He knew when he had been beaten. So his mum's the winner. Thursday whizzed past and Friday came. After school, Bertie played in his room with his pet earthworm, Arthur. Bertie kept him in a goldfish bowl filled with mud and leaves and a toy plastic soldier for company. He was trying to train Arthur to come when he called him. Arthur, Arthur, he coaxed. Bertie, called Mum from downstairs. Just a minute, Mum, said Bertie, and he hid the bowl under his bed. His mum didn't exactly know about Arthur the worm yet. So there you can see, in the goldfish bowl, here's Arthur the worm, Bertie's pet. It's a secret. A moment later, she poked her head round the door. Come on, Bertie, you'll be late for the party. What party? That's not going to work, said Mum. But I haven't got a present, said Bertie. Mum held up 2 boxes. The doll or the face paints, she said. Face paints, said Bertie gloomily. He wasn't going to turn up holding a doll. Oh, and I bought you this to wear, said Mum, and she handed him a brand new T-shirt. Ugh, I can't wear that. It's pink, said Bertie. Don't be silly, Bertie. It's a pink party. Now, hurry up and get ready. She disappeared, leaving him with the pink horror. Bertie got Arthur from under the bed, and he held the T-shirt against himself, and he looked in the mirror. What do you think, Arthur? He asked. Yucky or what? Suddenly, Bertie had the most brilliant brainwave, so he's had a really good idea. The invitation said to wear something pink. Well, worms were pink, weren't they? He could go to the party as an earthworm. All he needed was something pink and wormy to wear. I don't know if you've seen worms, but they are sometimes a bit pink. If you brush the mud off them when you found them in the garden, they are a bit pink. Bertie tiptoed into his parents' room. Strictly speaking, he wasn't allowed in there, not since he'd used Mum's favourite perfume to make a stink bomb. Opening the wardrobe, he began to pull out armfuls of clothes. Nothing pink there, but bingo, on top of the wardrobe he spotted something. Susie's sleeping bag, the one she was taking to school camp. It was bright pink with a hood that fitted snugly over your head. Perfect for an earthworm. All it needed was the finishing touch. 10 minutes later, Bertie's mum found him in the back garden. You see, there's Bertie's little face, and here he's in the sleeping bag, and he does look a bit like a worm. I don't think he'll be able to walk very well because his feet will be all tangled up in the sleeping bag. Oh, Bertie, no, Bertie, she wailed. What? Said Bertie. Look at you, you're filthy. Bertie scrambled to his feet and inspected his costume. It was impressively dirty, but that was the whole point of rolling in a flower bed. Earthworms are meant to be muddy, said Bertie. They live underground. Bertie, I asked you to get ready for the party. I am. It said to go in pink, so I am. I'm going as an earthworm, said Bertie. Mum looked closer. "What is that? It's not Susie's sleeping bag." "It is," said Bertie. "It's perfect." The sleeping bag was smeared with mud. It covered Bertie from head to toe, with only his grimy face peeping out. Mum sat down on the rockery. "Bertie, you can't go like that." "Why not?" said Bertie. "It's pink. I bet nobody else will be going as an earthworm." "No," said Mum, "I doubt they will." Angela's front door was covered in pink balloons. Mum walked up the path with Bertie hopping after her like a giant pink jumping bean, because he can't walk because the sleeping bag is keeping his feet together, so he's having to jump. And she rang the doorbell. Mrs. Nicely came to the door. "Hello," she said, and then, "Oh, good heavens!" and her eyes fell on Bertie. "I'm an earthworm," explained Bertie. How lovely," said Mrs. Nicely. "Do come in." Bertie showered clods of earth onto the carpet as he bounced into the hall. Most of Angela's friends had come as princesses and fairies, and the front room was a sea of pink tutus. Their ballet skirts, they're all net and ballets. You can see just here, there's that picture there, and that's when they get to the front door, and here are the balloons. There's Bertie, and there's Bertie's mum. "You're here, Bertie," said Angela, running up to him. "I'm a fairy. Look, I've got wings." "I'm an earthworm," said Bertie, "and I got you a present." An arm emerged from the sleeping bag holding a scruffy package. Angela tore off the wrapping paper. "Oh, thank you," she trilled, dropping the face paints on top of her big pile of presents. Bertie gazed at them longingly. "Let's play a game," said Mrs. Nicely. "Who wants to play musical statues?" Me, chorused all the fairy girls and the princesses. The music played, and they all danced around the room. "Bertie isn't dancing," moaned Angela. "Yes, I am," said Bertie. "This is how earthworms dance." So I think he might just be jumping and rolling along the floor, which isn't really dancing. He's messing about, isn't it? And all the girls are trying to dance, but look what's happening. He's getting under their feet. Bertie rolled over and over on the floor so that the dancing fairies had to jump over him, and then the music stopped. "Statues, everybody, statues!" The fairies and princesses became wobbling statues. So when you play musical statues, the music plays and you move around and you dance, and when the music stops, you have to stay really, really still, and the winner is the person who stays the stillest for longest. If you move, you're out. But Bertie, who was feeling a little hot and dizzy, hadn't been listening, and he just kept on rolling straight into one of the fairies. Laura wobbled and fell into Angela. Angela wobbled and fell on top of Marie and Claire. Soon all the statues had collapsed in a heap. Bertie rolled to a halt at Mrs. Nicely's feet. "Did I win?" said Bertie. Tea was pink. Pink biscuits, pink ice cream, and a pink birthday cake in the shape of a pink heart. Bertie ate worm style by licking things off his plate. Now, I think even before COVID we didn't do that, but now we don't lick anything that anybody else is going to touch because they might get our germs. "Bertie, please don't slurp like that," said Mrs. Nicely. "Sorry," said Bertie, "but worms can't help it because they don't know about manners." When Tea, see him just there, look, licking. He's such a cheeky boy. What a cheeky radish. When tea was over, Mrs. Nicely surveyed the mess on the floor. Most of it had collected under Bertie's chair. "Can we go on the bouncy castle now?" asked Bertie, tugging at her sleeve. "In a minute, Bertie," she said. "Angela, why don't you all go next door and play with your presents?" While Angela's friends played with her little patty pony set, Bertie eyed the face paints. Maybe he would just try one. He wriggled an arm out of his sleeping bag and selected a black face paint, and he drew on his chin, and he looked in the mirror. And next he drew on his cheeks. Perhaps he would turn himself into a vampire or a zombie, or better still, He was so busy that he didn't notice the room had gone very quiet. So there's Bertie. Look what he's done. The girls look a bit shocked. Bertie, said Angela. Said Bertie, I was just borrowing them. What have you done to your face? Said Angela. I'm a slug, said Bertie. You said you were a worm. I was, but now I'm a big black slug. He slithered on the floor, making slimy, sluggy noises. Angela's friends shrieked with delight and ran and hid behind the curtains. Angela peeked out too, her eyes shining. Make me a slug too, Bertie. Mrs. Nicely was still tidying up when the doorbell rang. Thank goodness the party was over for another year. That's sometimes how people at home feel when the birthday party's over. It's a bit of a relief because they're quite hard work. Bertie's mum stood on the doorstep with 3 other parents. I do hope Bertie's behaved himself. Yes, said Mrs. Nicely. He's such a lively boy. She led them through the back door. They're all playing in the garden. Angela's had such a lovely time. They have been as good as... Mrs. Nicely stopped in her tracks. 8 children were bouncing on the bouncy castle, but the princesses and the fairies who had come to the party had vanished. In their place were ugly green monsters in filthy dresses that looked like they had crawled out from a muddy swamp. In the middle of them all was Bertie, bouncing and whooping with delight. So here's the bouncy castle. And all those girls who were all clean and tidy and had little dresses on and all pink have all made Bertie make their faces into slugs as well, and now they are all muddy and dirty and brown. Look, Mum, sang Angela. I'm a creepy caterpillar. Bertie did it. Mrs. Nicely looked at Bertie's mum. The other parents looked at Bertie's mum, and Bertie's mum looked at Bertie. What? Said Bertie. Back in his room, Bertie was glad to be reunited with Arthur the Worm. Personally, he couldn't see why everyone had made such a fuss. What was the point in giving someone face paints if they weren't allowed to use them? Anyway, he told Arthur with a smile, I don't think they'll be inviting me next year. He considered it. Really, the party hadn't turned out so badly. He felt in his pocket and brought out something pink and sticky. Look, Arthur, I saved you some cake. So that is the story about Bertie and worms at the birthday party.